Hello, and welcome to this Week in Mormons International Edition. We're happy to be here. It's a wonderful time of the year, and we're here with Georgia. And
Hello, nice to see you again, Daniel.
thank you. Nice to see you too. I'm happy that we have the opportunity to have this um, episode today together. Unfortunately, Daniel Yanez is not able to be with us. He's taking a well-deserved vacation. So we're in charge of this episode this week, and we're very happy to do so. So, what about your week, Georgia? How's everything going in the other side
The other side of
of
the pond.
yes, correct.
Yeah, I've had a good week. I have been on holiday this week. You'd say I've been on vacation. I'd say I've been on holiday. Have you heard of the Cotswolds?
Not at all. I'm not
Ah,
familiar
okay.
with that.
I I mean they're very popular. It's a holiday destination in the UK called the Cotswolds. It's in the middle of the UK. That's where I've been this week. So just got back today, and I've had a week away with the family. It's been lovely. Um, I was in Worcestershire. Have you heard of Worcestershire sauce?
I mean, I've heard of the name. In fact, it's the first time I hear it pronounce it perfectly because it's not something I would say Worcestershire probably, which is
Oh
much
wow,
right. Yeah,
yeah. I think most people say Worcester or something like that, but it's
Worcester, Worcester. Yeah.
yeah, well, there's all sorts of different ways of saying it, but I would say Worcestershire, as in the county Worcestershire. We were on this is another difficult word, Gloucestershire and Worcestershire
Okay.
border. So, yeah, had a lovely holiday in the Cotswolds. There were so many tourists there. I couldn't believe it from different countries. There were all of these big coaches with Americans and Scandinavian people and Germans and loads of different people. But it was a lovely, lovely week. It's not a mountainous or a particularly, I'm not sure how to say it. It's just a lovely place. It's a really nice place to go. So we
But
had a great week.
what makes it so attractive to tourists then?
Oh, it's just typically British. So you've got thatched houses, you've got beautiful stonework, you've got the rolling hills, you've got, the green and pleasant land that is England. So it was lovely. The weather was terrible, so it rained pretty much every day.
So you went there and you were, I don't know, camping, or you were in a cottage or
Oh,
whatever.
we
I don't
we
know.
were in a lovely house on an
Okay.
estate. We went with my extended family, so it was this
Okay.
huge eight-bedroom house, which we loved. We had a swimming pool, and it was hilarious. Even in the pouring rain, my daughter and husband went swimming. So we just had a
It's a
really
holiday. Yes.
yeah, a lovely holiday, even though it always happens in England, it always rains. And then next week, the weather is due to be really good. But it's the first week of all of the schools starting back. So the 1st of September is typically the first day of school over here. And you've
Okay.
started school, university,
No,
I forget.
we start this week.
Oh, you start this
In
coming week.
So yes, New York State is a very particular state as well. It's probably the one that starts the latest in USI. So the rest of the states probably started already around August or the end of August. But New York State has, because it finishes later on, then it starts later on as well. So I mean, it's been kind of a crazy couple of weeks for us. I started school again. I'm in my second year of the PhD degree, so I'm taking courses still. And this semester, I'm going to be taking courses in two different institutions. So it's
Oh,
been a logistic mess because we only have one car, and then we have the kids here still at home. So you want to take them to a park or whatever, and it's just crazy. But I mean, I'm happy that we're alive and we're safe, and
it's
and the
good to
weather
be
has been
alive.
nice so far. Yes, it's good to be alive and having this positive attitude. But yeah, I mean, it's been, I would say, uh, tough. I think it's a little bit tougher than last year. I've been here for a year now, and I thought I had everything under control, but then new things come up, and then you have to sort them out. And this particular issue with taking classes into different institutions, it's also kind of an administrative mess because you don't have access to all the platforms and I don't
Yeah.
know the student cards and all those small things that can make your life a little bit miserable, so to say, when you don't have the full access to those things and you take that for granted.
But
But all
hopefully it'll be worth it in the end. Hey,
yes, I
when you
mean,
get that
I'm
PhD.
happy. I'm happy the classes are good. Professors are excellent. I mean, the type of quality of professorship here is just amazing. I mean, all of them are publishers, top tier journals. They participate in they're editors, or even they're in some cases they have been boards in some of these journals. So it's just lovely, and yeah, and you feel like they care about you, and it's like a human size kind of experience where everyone matters, and I think that's more than significant for me. So
Well, that's wonderful.
so let's get into the news for this week.
Absolutely.
And I think they're wonderful news, and I'm happy that we got this week and not other week because
I'm happy we got this week as well. There's been loads of just fun news this week. It feels like nobody's been unwell this week. Nobody has had any problems this week. It's all just been some lovely feel good news for us to go through. So, why don't you kick us off with the first piece of news to discuss?
okay, let me read the heading is General Handbook gets updates and condensed selections offering in some languages. Okay. So I love the fact that the church is constantly making updates. And first of all, I mean, I'm from a time where we had two different sets of handbooks. We've got the red one and the blue one, and
Mm,
and now we've got one unified handbook, and that's one wonderful thing. First, and then second, that the handbook is also going through updates because this is a living church, and we believe in revelation, and we believe in improvements, and therefore I think it makes all the possible sense to have updates, and I'm curious because I haven't had the chance to go through all of them, but I'm curious uh, which interesting aspects have been improved, modified, updated, or
yeah.
better with a better wording, maybe, if that
Yeah,
is
I have so much to say on this. So it's funny, you jogged my memory when you said there used to be two handbooks, because when I was first looking into the church, I really wanted to get my hands on that handbook one, the one that wasn't available to the
the blue
general.
one.
Yeah, and I never did, but I remember thinking, oh, what are the secrets that they're keeping from me in there? Um, yeah, what are they? So I read my whole way through that red one, that handbook too, because that was available. I guess if I'd just asked at the time, if I'd been open with the bishop, he probably would have said, "There's nothing to hide here. Have a look."
Sure.
Um, but I never did that. But I do like it now that there's transparency, and anybody could go on the church website and look at the handbook, couldn't they? And then I think it's great that it's not a physical book, because like what's happened this week, they have updated it and they can keep updating it and keep making changes, and we can be in this sort of living church rather than a stagnant church. We can be part of this church that's alive and is making changes and is listening to its members, hopefully, although maybe not quite as fast as some of us would like, but at least, the cogs are turning, changes are happening.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going through some of the updates that are mentioned. Relief Society leaders, there's an update in that section. Baptismal services, requirements for temple ordinance workers, conducting a temple recommend interview, temple ordinances for the living. There are plenty of things. I mean, and again, I totally agree on improvement, on change. My personal belief as a member of the church is that we are all invited to change, to
Mm.
be better, to be good, and I think if that is invitation is at the root of everything we do, why not welcoming more of this changes that are operational in some of them in nature, but others might be administrative in nature, but many of them, if not all, are spiritual in nature, right? So they're there to help us understand better, or maybe help us improve the way we worship, improve the way we understand certain principles, and again some procedures, because they're not only administrative procedures. Many of them, again, if not all, are also spiritual in nature. So I love that, and I love the fact that we have a very clear instruction about what are the changes and where do we find them. So
That's very true because sometimes you don't necessarily know what the changes are and it's hard to keep track. So it's nice that they have released this bullet point list where we can find out what the changes are and we can know exactly what we need to do moving forwards to help the work in our congregations.
and also resonates to me the fact that we have also letters that are addressed to specific members or callings in the church, and I think this kind of goes together and kinds of settles this two ways of how the church communicates or instructs new updates or new changes. So it's all good
One
and
that's grabbed
welcome.
my attention is in section 35.5, policies on using church meeting houses. It says there have been updates to the guidelines underscoring the safe and responsible use of meeting houses in ways that welcome and serve both members and friends. And one big thing for me at the moment in my own congregation that I'm really keen on is trying to get people who aren't members of our church into our church buildings. I think it's so important because I don't know about your church building, but ours just sits there so much of the time and it isn't used. And I feel like it could be used in such a better way. We've got a wonderful ward building. We're right near the train station in our city where it's got a car park, which is unheard of in our city. Parking is really limited. Um, there are so many ways that we could be using the building that we're not using the building. So I hope that that update is encouraging to us that we can sort of throw open the doors more often and we can have community events and other things in our chapels.
Yeah, and I was looking at it at a different perspective, even related to safety. Yes, and I think we've talked about this before, or I've talked about this before with some other members of my ward as well, and how we have safety plans for evacuation or whatever, right? And I think some members, some regular members, will not think of it as something important. But when you have such a big amount of people, we're thinking of 100 people on a Sunday, and then I don't know, there is an emergency, a fire alarm, or whatever. Then most of the time, because we're so used to going to church and everything is peaceful and quiet and spiritually uplifting, then you don't mind about thinking where's I don't know, the safety place, or where should we go when we evacuate, or very small things that might be not really relevant, but on the other hand really really necessary when the time needs them to be relevant. So
Mhm.
I think it's also, I think it should probably touch upon that aspect as well. I hope.
Well, it's certainly
Okay.
given ward leaders a lot to think about. But shall we move on?
Yes, sure, sure. So yeah, yeah. In at least in our case, we worked with one of the counselors and one member of the ward that is very well versed, and we did like an evacuation plan, and it's in very specific spots. So then we're trying to make sure that the brethren, the membership of the ward knows exactly where the evacuation exits and everything. So yeah, we're trying to do a reasonable job in that space as well. Besides all the other stuff that is happening. But it's fine.
Sure. Well, let me read the next one then. So, this is an article which was run this week by LDS Living, and it talks about how the CEO of the clothing brand Cotopaxi has accepted an assignment to serve as a mission president, him and his wife. So his name is Davis Smith, and we're not quite sure how to pronounce his wife's name, but we think it's Ageline or similar.
Ageline or Asia Lane. Yes.
Ashling,
Yes.
yes. And they look so young in the picture of them. If you
Yeah.
Google them, they look really young. I don't know exactly how old they are, but it's really lovely to see such a successful business person accept a call to serve a mission. At least in my opinion, anyway, because he's obviously someone who has achieved great success and is a CEO of a major international company and he can now transfer those skills into the mission field.
Yeah, and I think the fact that he is committed, to serve, also in a way is an expression of how he understands his temple covenants. And every now and then, I think we forget, or it's easy for us when it's convenient, to remember those covenants, and when we're challenged, it's just tough. And I mean, for all of us, like pedestrian citizens, regular citizens, I mean, we have to abandon certain things, that is attending to church or attending to meetings, and maybe we had something else planned, and then we say, no, I'm going to go to church, and all, right? But when you think of someone that is so successful, and it's kind of running a very powerful company, and it's been very profitable, and he decides at a, as we see, a probably young age still, to serve, and to be a mission president for 3 years. It's not a small decision to make, right? And so then it's not all about the money. First, that's the first thing that comes to your mind, and then second, uh, clearly this person understands his temple, or their temple, as a marriage, their temple covenants, and they're willing to serve the Lord. And again, it's easy to think of people abandoning certain things, or even myself, when I had to go to a mission, I thought, well, I'm abandoning college, or abandoning family, friends, I don't know. But it's such a small or tiny sacrifice, right, in comparison to someone that is a CEO, that is running a successful, at this point, it's a very successful, very popular brand, uh, and decides to go and serve the mission for 3 years, and being in charge, also the huge responsibility that requires a for a mission presidency, or a mission president, and uh, to take care of 200 young single adults, right, for 3 years, is just massive. And the impact mission presidents have on their sister missionaries, and elders, is just amazing. I don't know if you've heard, but usually when return missionaries or return sister missionaries talk about their mission, they usually quote their mission president, or their
Mm, you're
you
right. Yeah, that's true.
So it is quite of a thing. It is. You start talking about your mission for a long time, and your testimony is strengthened, and it grows during that time. And I think of it as a very strong base of what has been my testimony. Uh, of course, it has grown in time, and I've learned, and I've experienced spiritual things for myself since then, right? I'm not leaving out of those past missionary experiences, but what I'm trying to say here is that a mission present that is a known, let's say, a, a known business person, then might have an interesting impact on those missionaries that know this, or
Yeah,
they're surprised by this kind of sacrifice, right? Or
totally. But I think for someone who knows what a mission is, it's not surprising that he would make, or they would make that choice. Him and his wife, I guess, would make that joint choice to go on a mission. But the article actually quotes that fortune.com ran an article saying that he is now a mission president, because of course he began his service a few months ago, but the article's just come out this week, where an outside perspective has labeled his decision as shocking. And I think it totally would be, right, to someone who knows nothing about the church, knows nothing about missionary work, to have a CEO of a company suddenly step down and say, hey, I'm going to spend 3 years not earning a salary, in fact, paying probably to go
paying
to
for
go
my
on
mission. Yeah.
this mission. It probably would be incredibly shocking to those people, but hopefully it would be a good opportunity for them to look into what he's actually doing. I believe they're serving in Brazil, and will need to learn Portuguese, and it will come with a whole host of other challenges. But yeah, an interesting one there, and fascinating that Fortune.com has run this article on this man and is seeing it from a whole different perspective.
Yes, yes, I like that, and I like the fact that he's very, very open about it, about his religion, and about his beliefs. because
True.
sometimes we just think it's something private and we keep it to ourselves, which is okay. I totally respect that approach. But then when you're so big, right, and in those secular arenas, then when you're given the opportunity, then you should come out and say what you believe in and what you want to do with your life. So it's just amazing. So
Yeah,
congrats on that huge new mission present we've had
absolutely.
around. We've got another very interesting news that comes from church news, and it's about President Nelson. As you may know, besides being the president of the church and being our current prophet, seer, and revelator, President Nelson also was a very successful cardiologist
Yes.
during his time. So he donated his medical journals to University of Utah. So what do you think about that, Georgia? I mean, uh, why do you think is this a relevant piece of article or piece of news for
Oh,
us as
I
members?
just love getting a glimpse into the lives of our church leaders, and we see them with such a tunnel vision, don't we? Like just for a second, imagine President Nelson not wearing a suit. You know, like we only see him wearing a suit. Um, and I just love it that he was this hugely successful surgeon for 30, well, maybe longer than 30 years. I don't even know. I'm guessing at 30 years of his life. And when I saw that article this week, it really opened up that there are so many different aspects to his personality. And I've heard different things, you know, that he was still skiing at age 90, for example. You know, I know that he plays the piano, different things. I guess I see him as someone who speaks at general conference and who leads the church, but he's actually this really amazing man.
Cool.
Yeah,
He's a cool. Yes, he's cool.
yeah, in other ways. And I love it that he has donated his medical journals to the University of Utah. I saw a photo and they were all, you know, really neatly lined up. There's obviously with the medical journal, it will be a document of his academic life, I guess, academic and surgical career, and it's brilliant to find out. I really wish we had more information about our church leaders. I know this sounds really random, but I really want to know what they eat because they're all so healthy and vibrant. And I'm like, I need some of that, you know?
Give me, yeah, give me your daily, yeah,
I would
food
love a day
intake.
in the life of. I know that on Instagram recently, Elder Bednar did like a come with me into my day as an apostle. And I felt like it really towed the line. I thought it could have been so much more interesting. It was like, oh, I go to this meeting, I go to that meeting. I was like, no, I want to see you, you know, going home. Like, what do
Yeah.
you eat dinner with your wife?
What's your routine? What's your
Yeah, like,
I
do you
don't
brush
know,
your
your
teeth
running
twice
routine?
a day?
Yes,
Like,
yes.
what are you, you know, what's the deal here? And
Yeah.
it was just a really, you know, yeah, boring. I'm going to use the word boring. It was a boring video which just showed him going to a lot of meetings. Well, to be fair, they were quite nice meetings, but I felt like there was so much more. I wanted to see him as a human, and I think that's what this medical journal article has given me, is to see President Nelson as a human being, and I would just love to see more of that. I back in, I think it was 2016, I had the opportunity. I was living in Oxford at the time. I was doing my teacher training. I'm a physics teacher. I was doing my teacher training at the University of Oxford, and I had the opportunity to go and hear Elder Christopherson speak about his career. He gave this symposium at the University of Oxford, and it was almost entirely secular what he was talking about. He wasn't talking about the gospel at all, and it was a secular lecture for people attending the university. And it was absolutely fascinating to see him in a different way because all of these people who are church leaders have fantastic things about them that we just don't necessarily get exposure to. So I would like more of that. I feel very passionate about that. Can you tell?
Yeah, and I get this feeling like for some people, like members of the church are boring, but I
Mm,
get the total opposite perspective that I mean, there's plenty of cool people they're very active church members, and they have very interesting stories. Uh, Many of them very successful in different spaces, and I think this whole idea of you know being the best we can and trying to achieve greatness in whichever endeavor we engage it's just a call for everyone, right? And if you're good at something, then try to excel. And I think our leaders currently, they all excelled. I mean, I have this perception that they uh, excelled, and they uh, defeated the world, right? I mean, they were capable of defeating the world, and because of that, they were called to this very challenging assignments, right? That is running the Church of Jesus Christ. So I love that all of them have something very, very interesting to tell us in their own personal stories,
Mm,
their own backgrounds, and what they did while they were younger and while they were growing up, and how their decisions shaped the way they're today. So yeah, in a way, I agree with you. I would like to know, I don't know, the routines, yeah, the physical activity they do, what they eat, yes, and how many hours do they sleep, and things like those that might be helpful for all of those of us that are trying to have a healthier, better lifestyle as well. So it sounds fun. And finally, I think allowing a university to keep these records and to keep these journals in a world that is just requiring money for this uh, excellent quality bits of information that are research projects or papers, right?
that's true.
It's just it's a reminder of the importance of sharing the knowledge to others, right? To be for it to be replicable, for it to be spread and accessible. So I
Yeah.
also believe of the importance of the accessibility of this kind of information, and and I'm happy that President Nelson did it for the wider community, right? For the
Yeah, absolutely. He could have said that he wanted money for it, and he just donated it. So he wasn't trying to grab money from from anyone.
all good, all good. Georgia, would you like to go to the next?
Yep. So they ran an article this week, and we're going over to Thailand for this piece of news. It is that the young single adults attended an early tour of the new Bangkok, Thailand temple, even ahead of the media. So more than 375 young single adults met with elder and sister Gong in a devotional prior to the tour of the temple, and then they got to attend the temple before anyone else. So why do you think that was that they invited the young single adults?
I don't know. The first guess would be it's a vote of trust. Then it would be an opportunity for them to recognize the importance of the temple, and I think that's also a strong message. That everyone is invited to the temple, and the temple is not only for married people. I mean, sometimes, or growing up in the church, if you were single, you were suited to a very specific set of callings, and you couldn't be called to, I don't know, being, let's say, elders quorum president or relief society president. And I've seen a change in that space, and I think the change is good, because if you're worthy, you could serve anywhere in the church, right? And if you're worthy, you can go to a temple, you can receive your own endowments, and you can do covenants, right? Of course, sealing to your spouse, right? And having that powerful covenant is really, really important. But we know that also it's such an important decision that we shouldn't rush people to go and seal just because they have to be sealed and they have to be eternal families, right? So, and for some people, they didn't have the opportunity to get married, and that doesn't mean that they're not worthy or they're not capable of serving in different callings in the church. So, I mean, for the young single adults to participate in the open doors for the temple means maybe the first opportunity for some of them to see a temple from the inside first.
I had not thought of that. You are so right. Yeah, a lot of those young single adults. By the way, I hate that term, YSA, young single adults. I I'm still wrapping my head around all the different um, three-letter
Acronyms.
combinations of
Yeah,
the acronyms. That's the way you
yeah.
say it. Yeah, still wrapping my head around that, but it's just such a tricky one for me. YSA, but yeah, you're totally right. Maybe some of them wouldn't have stepped into the temple before; they wouldn't have felt like it was relevant to them. So that's why they invited them. I'd be interested to know exactly what was said in that devotional. And what counsel was given to them. I'm sure it's in the article somewhere. But getting to have that focus and that spiritual experience would no doubt be a good experience for them.
Yeah, yeah, and again, I think this vote of trust and this opportunity for them to participate first is just a wonderful experience. A very
Yeah. And I mean, temples are popping up everywhere now. Exciting that there's one in Bangkok. There's so many different places where there are temples. I was thinking about this earlier today. I wonder if the church has some sort of computer program which tells them where the temples are needed, because they can see where all the members live and they can see the population density of each place. And I wonder if someone has created a program that runs all the different geographical locations where everyone lives and tells them where the temples are needed to give most members the opportunity to go to them. Does that make any sense? I wonder if they've done that.
absolutely, yeah, absolutely. I mean, everything is geo-referenced now, so I don't think it will be a difficult endeavor at this point. I believe. I mean, if we can geo-reference meeting houses, it's just another step in the process just to make or run software that will allow you to locate the next reasonable location for a future temple. So
Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely,
Maybe
no
that's me
doubt
just
about it.
being practical. I guess all they have to really do is pray about it, right? And they'll just be given the names of the places where the temples should be. That would be the spiritual answer. But my practical physics brain is saying, come on, like surely there's a computer program for this.
And both things could work together. I love
Yeah.
that. I love
Yeah.
that both things can work together and can find a way to provide both the reason, the rationale behind it, and also the spiritual reasons behind it.
Yeah, and I feel like I heard a story where just before conference, President Nelson felt inspired to announce a temple that he hadn't previously felt inspired to announce. Did you hear that? Am I making that
I
up?
don't remember that. I'm actually very curious about what you're saying because I don't remember that.
Okay, well, we'll have to hold that thought and maybe talk about it
Okay.
another time because I have not got any information to verify it other than just a distant memory in my brain. But I feel like that did happen, and it was for a really out there location like Russia or China or India or somewhere like that
Okay.
that there was that, but I can't quite remember. But maybe we'll have to come back to that. But yes, you're right. The secular and the spiritual, as a physics teacher, I'm just all over that we can use the rational side of our brain, but then we can also use our spiritual intuition, and the two marry up so nicely. And for me, science and religion just work really well together. But I've gone off on a huge tangent now, so maybe we should draw it back to the temple. And we've got of course, we've got this piece of news this week, which is close to your home, which is that the First Presidency have announced the Manhattan, New York temple renovation plans. So they said that the temple is going to close next year for a renovation, and it's expected to take about 3 years.
No. So let me explain a little bit about this building. This is what I've learned. The building has three purposes. Did you know that? So
Oh,
it
I
has
I
it
did.
is a meeting house. It's a church meeting house. It's also a church office building, and it's also a temple.
Okay.
So I mean, it's all the good things in different layers, in different stories, and I haven't had the chance to go there. In fact, I haven't had the chance to go to my with my wife to New York City. We live 3 hours and a half from New York City, from Manhattan, so it's a long trip. We have three kids, and then you know that it's just tough to spend, I don't know, 6 hours, 6 to 7 hours just commuting, and then trying to visit the temple or doing things around New York City will be difficult with kids. So we've been meaning to find a way to go and visit the place. And now that we have this announcement, we're very I think, sad and worried that we won't be able to make it probably before it closes. And then when it closes, it says 3 years. But I mean, 3 years is within the plans. But what if it takes a little bit longer? So probably we will be out of the U.S. while that happens. So we were just crying internally about this feeling that we're not going to be able to visit that place. But I mean, all good reasons behind the renovations, and I think people that worship in that particular temple or people that attend that particular meeting house will welcome the changes. And mostly, in practical terms, I think you build a building for a specific purpose, and then you either have too many people attending or too many people using the space, and then you need to do renovations just for the sake of improving the facilities and characteristics. And
Well, they're
but
updating quite a few of the temples at the moment. I mean, I'm not hugely tapped into it because I'm not close to any of them, but I know that the Salt Lake Temple, they've recently said that's going to take a little bit longer than they expected it to. Then there's the St. George Temple, right, that they're um, doing renovations on, and a few others as well. So they're obviously thinking that they need to update them and give some fairly major work to some of them.
yeah, yeah, and I mean, what I've seen is that these renovations are in direct relation with the members that are using these buildings and these facilities. So, I don't know, maybe parking spaces, maybe more rooms to do classes in the meeting house, more office space or open space for the church office building. And, maybe the temple will have another, I don't know, other rooms to do ceilings, a celestial room. I mean, all those things are major modifications, and thinking of them as an opportunity again for the people that use these facilities is just wonderful. It's just a bummer for me that I'm 3 hours and a half from getting to go there, but feeling unable because I'm loaded with classes and regular attendance to my university, and then research and
Yeah.
kids in school, right, and
Of
and the
course, busy
commute.
life. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it says it doesn't close until 2024, and they haven't given an exact date. So maybe you've got time. Who knows? Maybe you could go for Christmas and see, all the beautiful Christmas lights and whatnot.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, that might be nice.
yeah. We can try. We can definitely try.
And one final point that I wanted to say on this one is that I wish there were more multi purpose buildings. That's really cool. Church office, meeting house, and temple. I think I wonder if they're going to do more of that in terms of in the future, we're going to need a lot more temples. And I just wonder if meeting houses could one day become temples. I just,
Yeah,
what if?
that's an interesting thought. I mean, I was thinking for this particular for this particular space, that Manhattan spaces are just crazy expensive. So it's just an efficient way of having or using that very, very probably the most expensive piece of land on earth, right? And to use it appropriately, right? I mean, and because the standard around is just building on stories and then making stories for different purposes or for specific purposes, then it's just not wasting the money, right? The sacred money the church has on something that is not going to be significant or contributive to the membership. So yeah, but I like the idea. I mean, I never thought of it before. In For instance, in my country, because Chile is a very seismic country, then you can't build up uh, unless you spend a lot of money on it, build up on height, because it's way more expensive. Yeah, I mean, you do it. There are lots of buildings too, but it's you prefer to buy land instead of, I don't know,
So are
making.
most of the houses in your country single story?
Yeah, I mean, you have two-story houses. That's normal, but you don't have basements, for instance. It's not something you have. That doesn't exist actually. No
I,
basements in Chile.
I'd never
Yeah, my,
thought
my
about
kids are
that.
crazy with basements here because they're very common, but they are non-existent. Yeah.
Well, we don't have them here in England either, but I'd never thought about it before. I mean, occasionally a house might have a cellar, a wine cellar
Okay.
or something
Yes.
like that, but Yeah, we don't have basements, but I don't know what the reason for that is.
Here are
Yeah.
very common. Every house has one. Even my student house has one. Is very dingy and like creepy and spiders and everything. But yeah,
It still has one.
but it has one. Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Well, we've gotten way off topic, so bringing us back onto topic again, would you like to talk through our next news article?
Yes, this is an LDS Living article, and it says Elder Bednar dedicates Joseph and Emma Smith's Kirtland home. So, I mean, Kirtland is kind of a very relevant spot in church history. So, um, it's interesting to see the church efforts also in the space of making sure that historical sites are dedicated, are spiritually uplifting, and they're open to the general public. And I have the chance because I live here in New York State to visit the sites around here. That is Hill Cumorah, the Whitmer's Farm, Sacred Grove, the church r- priesthood restoration site as well. They're all wonderful and they're all unique. So if any of the listeners today is thinking about going to any of the sites, I highly recommend it. If you go through the church webpage, you will see that there is also an instructive about the days of operation, what you can do there, how long it's going to take you to visit the site, and they're lovely. I mean, I recently went there because my in-laws are visiting us, and it's just marvelous. And my in-laws are speak Spanish speaking, so we had the chance because there was a sister missionary that spoke Spanish, and she did the tour in Spanish.
Oh,
Uh,
great.
Usually, you get videos that are exclusive for this place, for this visitors experience, and they also played it in Spanish because they knew we were Spanish speaking. So it was, I mean, you felt at home, you felt welcome. We felt like they cared about us, and it was wonderful, and it was absolutely worth the trip. It takes us like 3 hours to get to Palmyra, for instance, which you think it should be closer because it's within the New York State boundaries, but Palmyra is far from us, and but at the same time was very wonderful to go and visit it.
Yeah.
What's your take as someone that is in the UK? What do you think about these historic places, Georgia?
Well, it's really funny that it's called history because it's actually not that long ago, right?
Yeah, yeah,
I've got buildings in the streets surrounding me from, the 1500s and 1600s, and it's just common for us. I mean, my local cathedral has paintings in it from the 1200s. So the fact that we've got this sort of more recent aspect to our church history is really interesting. But for me, it also brings a I suppose I put um what's the word? It's not coming to me, but I have expectations that there will be more. I suppose what I want is the full story behind these
okay,
places. So I feel like say there's an event that happened 1,000 years ago. We're not going to have the full picture of what happened at that time. However, if we have an event that happened 200 years ago when the printing press was around, I'm assuming, and all that sort of stuff, I feel like there should be really good documentation, and that is potentially what this house, this dedication that Elder Bednar's done of Joseph and Emma Smith's house. I feel like maybe they're gonna do that really well. So just skimming through the article, it says that they actually did loads of research and they found out what the house would have been like at the time of Joseph and Emma Smith living there, and they even lowered the ceiling to match the sort of blueprint for what the house would have been,
the
which
standards of that time. Yes,
yeah, which is quite nice. But I think the fact that it is such recent history for me, as someone from England who has this really, really long history um, at my fingertips, I feel like I do have a higher expectation that it's going to be really thorough and really good. I haven't been to any church history site on that. east coast of the USA at all, I would absolutely love to. I've been virtually during COVID. They did, well, I don't know if they still do. They did virtual tours. So I did I think a Sacred Grove and
Oh, awesome.
Sacred Grove virtual tour, which was really nice. We did it as a ward activity. I thought, we're all in our homes, we can't go anywhere. Why don't we
Why
virtually
not?
go to the go to the Sacred Grove? Why not? And it was really nice. So yeah, just the more places that they decide to open up for the general public, the better, I think. And the fact
Yeah.
that they've dedicated this, they bought it in 2012. Did you know that? So it's been a project 10, 11 years in the making.
So, I mean, I was recently in the church priesthood restoration site, and that was the first house of Joseph and Emma. In fact, that was in the land, the property of the Hale of Emma's family, and that was their first house. And it was lovely to see the details and how they laid out everything, and how the sister missionaries were explaining what which room meant to them. And then they had a table where Joseph started to um, write the translation. And you know what I learned? And I didn't. I mean, I actually thought of it, but I really I didn't know at that time that Emma was her first scribe. So Emma was the first to start writing
I think
what
I
what
did
Joseph
know
was.
that somewhere in my brain. Yeah.
But it was so powerful when they said that, because in a way you also understand all the sacrifices and the good work Emma did for the restoration of the gospel, and it makes you also value all her efforts for the cause. So I think it was just amazing to see that. um, as I said before, you get in the tour the situation related to Emma's father and his reluctance to accept Joseph as a member of the family, because the Hale were kind of a wealthy family in comparison to the Smiths, right? So uh, it was interesting, and at that time they already had this gossips about Joseph having angelic visitors and such. So it was a difficult time, and I think, I mean, in those times you could see like this true love, between a young Joseph and a young Emma that really got to know each other and then decided to have a life together. So yeah, it's just wonderful to see that this final home, their last home together, one that they stayed a long time, was finally dedicated, and is also part, of this broader option of visiting historic sites that are relevant to and to understand better our church history and all this nuanced experiences that they did have, and that were crucial for what we've got today as a church. So I'm thankful that this happened recently. And unfortunately, I think Kirtland from me is very, very far. I think it's like a couple of days driving, so it will be crazy just to do it, as I've done in the past. Do a day trip with the kids, and yeah, at this
Yeah.
point, I don't want to bore them as well with just church trips, and we want also to show them some other sites.
No,
So
I think it's interesting. I don't know enough really about these different sites. I know that the UK has a very interesting place called Gadfield Elm. It's actually very near to where I was staying this week in the Cotswolds. Well, it's not quite in the Cotswolds. It's sort of on a little bit further out, but it's that way. It would be within an hour of where I was staying. Yeah, it's either in Gloucestershire or Worcestershire. There's those words. Going back to
okay,
where we've gone, it's either there. It's called Gadfield Elm, and it's actually the oldest continuous. What was it? The oldest chapel in the world, LDS chapel in
really.
the world. Yeah, and I've been there, and it was wonderful, and it has a really special feeling about it, as I'm sure most of those church history sites do. I think the challenge now is getting people who aren't members of our church to go and visit and to see and to learn more.
The experience so far, I had the chance to be in one tour where there were no members of the church, and it was interesting. And so, I mean, for very like general reasons, those places are for free. They have sister missionaries and senior missionaries helping around and sharing. But what I like the most, and this is something probably from my bias, but I get the feeling or the sense that many non-members of the church think of us as people that are very insistent, and they don't like us because of that. Like we have this reputation of being insistent and knocking on doors and like being I don't know, trying to push our doctrine and our beliefs. But the sense I got from visiting the church historic sites is the total opposite. It's an experience that is wholesome, that is spiritual in nature, that is relaxed. There's no signing up or give me your email address or your phone number and we will contact you, anything like that. And you have time to be by yourself and to think and to ponder about the things you heard, seen, or learned in the session. So it's just a wonderful experience. So I welcome everyone that hasn't been in the church historic sites to go, even members, friends of the church, uh, whoever wants to, please do so and give yourself a favor and the opportunity to go, because they're really something special and they're very well laid out and uh, purposeful and significant. So
Well, there we go. Thank you for that push. Maybe I should see if they're still doing virtual tours
and check if you have another option. Okay, so I think it's almost time for us
to say
already.
goodbye. We're out of time, aren't we?
Yes, yes, we're almost about running out of time. First of all, for all of those that are listening to us or watching us on YouTube, thank you for keeping it up with the This Week in Mormons, this international episode. If you have any questions, any comments, you can go to contact at thisweekinmormons.com. If you haven't, you can subscribe to Spotify channel or YouTube channel. If you would like to contribute to this interesting expression of what we believe in and how uh, church and our beliefs are important to us, you can go through the Patreon. Also, there's a Patreon where you can um, help around, and we'll be more than welcome if you do so. And I don't know, Georgia, do you have anything around in your head that you would like to mention while we close this episode?
I think you covered it really nicely. I
Thanks.
think,
Awesome.
yeah.
Awesome. So we hope to see you soon, probably sooner than you expect. We love to be around, and this has been really, really fun. So have a wonderful week. Enjoy.
Thank you for listening.
Goodbye.